Lake Chickamauga has become known as the new bass fishing capital of the South. Thanks to a Florida-strain bass stocking program started in 2000, this Tennessee River impoundment has been producing big bags and big champions in the bass world. Nearly 60 miles long, this 36,000-acre lake has 810 miles of shoreline, great structure, a great mix of vegetation and habitat, moving water, and those big, beautiful Florida-strain giants. Big fish bring big personalities, which makes Lake Chickamauga the perfect place to showcase the amazing talent in the first ever Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit Super Tournament. Major League Fishing anglers are joining FLW pros for a shot at record-breaking bags and over $4 million in payouts. The newly expanded field is headlined by the best professional anglers in the world, and the competition has never been hotter. Last year at Chickamauga, Angler of the Year David Dudley, Cup champion John Cox, and hometown hero Buddy Gross all secured spots in the top 5 on the final day. In their sights was soon-to-be Rookie of the Year Ron Nelson, who went out in the top spot on the final morning. With 10 minutes left until check-in, John Cox threw a Hail Mary and returned to a stretch of trees he had forgotten about.
Come here. Woo! Woo! We gotta go. Oh man, that's what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh.
When the smoke cleared, that pair of 4-pounders gave John a 4-day total of over 83 pounds and his 4th tournament victory.
15 pounds, 5 ounces. Your champion is John Cox. Wow! His 3rd win on the FLW Tour, a former Cup champion.
He will be the best in the world soon if he's not already. Congratulations, John.
On a fall day in 2010, another fishing giant claimed victory here, but with a much different approach. 11-year veteran Mark Rose fished offshore structure and ledges to gain his 3rd FLW win, beating local Wesley Strader by a margin of only 2 pounds, 9 ounces.
I felt really good about having a good, consistent tournament once I found that first big school of fish. Then when I found my second one a couple of days later, that just assured me that I was going to have some consistency, which is what you need in a 3 or 4 day tournament. I felt like I had enough to last, really. I had enough fish in those schools to last me 4 days. And so that was after the day 1 weigh-in, when I was like in second, I knew I had a shot.
Chickamauga doesn't just lure big anglers to its waters, it makes them. In 2013, fishing his rookie season in the front of the boat, Casey Martin found himself shoulder to shoulder with local sticks Wesley Strader and Michael Neal and fishing giants Larry Nixon and Andy Morgan. He eventually found 3 schools of bass to fish from, one of which was a mega school on a giant ledge.
Woo! Oh gosh, that's a big one. Oh yes, yes. Look at that. Another solid fish. Oh, yes. Woo! That's why you don't give up right there. 6.5.
In one of the most dominating victories in FLW Tour history, Martin amassed a 4-day total of 103 pounds and 3 ounces, the 2nd largest stringer in FLW Tour competition at the time. With over 30 pounds of bass on the final day alone, he won with a 22-pound-plus margin of victory, which at the time was the 2nd largest in FLW Tour history. Whether it's a bass fishing legend, a local hero, or one of the 28 rookies waiting to break out, a new champion is going to be crowned at Lake Chickamauga this year. And with a field that includes 56 Major League Fishing pros joining the FLW family for the first of 3 super tournaments, the stakes have never been more interesting. This truly is the land of giants. Welcome back, everyone, to competitive bass fishing. It's been 3 months since our last event, but I promise you, it's been worth the wait. We're here at Lake Chickamauga for stop number 4 of the Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit, but our first of 3 super tournaments. We have combined our Tackle Warehouse Pros with the MLF Pros, with over 50 MLF Pros that we haven't seen fishing in the FLW in years, some that we've never seen come across the scales. And these anglers are going to be competing for a record-breaking $1.3 million for this qualifying event. So some history in the making here, and we're going to be stepping up our coverage. You've got to have more coverage for an event this big. So instead of our 2 days, we're going to go 4 full days of live coverage here, guys. And it is going to be a fantastic 4 days at that. Good morning, everyone. Travis Moran here at the studios in Benton, Kentucky, alongside Red Gold Tomatoes Pro Todd Hollowell, and on loan from the MLF, Marty Stone. Marty, thanks for coming in.
Guys, I have been waiting. When I got the opportunity to invite, I'm like, now I get to go hang out with the cool kids.
Todd, what do you think about this, man?
Man, the super tournaments, right? Like, I've grown to know a lot of these FLW Pro Circuit anglers over the last 10 years, but this is something I don't know that this sport has ever seen. We're seeing 2 major circuits combine. We're going to see a bunch of legends jump in with this pro circuit. I'm honored to be sitting next to a legend. There's so much to play out at Chickamauga this week. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously the points race still on the table for our Tackle Warehouse Pros, but now the new anglers coming in from the MLF, a whole lot of money up for grabs for these guys.
It really is. I mean, when you talk about a record-setting event, the 1.3 million, it's never been done in a qualifying event. And then we're going to have the collisions. Todd, you said it very well, some legends in there. But I think when we come out of this, 3-tournament super series, what we're going to see is some FLW young anglers. When they get through with this is where we're going to put the asterisks by their career, that they stood toe-to-toe with the best in the business, and they knocked it out of the park. This is an opportunity for these guys to truly put a fast track and an explanation point in front of their career.
Absolutely, guys. And talking to these anglers before the event, there was the talk of shallow water fishing, obviously talk of fishing the ledges. Why don't we take a look here at the maps and break down some of these different key elements that are going to play.
Yeah, I think one of the awesome stories about this week is Lake Chickamauga itself. We're going to get to tell the story of how this place has become one of the bass fishing destinations in this eastern part of the United States. And there's a lot of fabled ledges. It's June, it's the Tennessee River, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the history that lower half of Chickamauga has had over the last 5 years or so. But Marty, that's not the only thing in play this week at Chickamauga. Tell us about the rest of this field, especially that upper half of the fishery around Dayton, Tennessee.
Yeah, Todd, where I think the sleeper this week could be, especially for guys, there's going to be some guys sneak into that top 20, and I'm going to call it between the bridges. The Highway 30 bridge up north that you see, and all the way down south to the Highway 60 bridge, and then you've got the Hiwassee River. This is the area where you're talking about traditional shallow water fishing. A lot of the backwater bays, and this place is loaded with cover, from water willows to laydowns to rocks, docks, everything that a shallow water angler likes. And the unique thing that's going to stand out about this lake is known as a ledge lake. But now you're going to have some water that these anglers can run that's not getting the traditional springtime pressure. So a shallow water angler that focuses on these areas, I think he's got a chance to have a really good event. And I feel like if you're going to fish shallow, this is going to be the part of the lake that you're going to need to do it at.
I think you're exactly right, Marty. And when you come down below that bridge there where the Hiwassee River flows in, you've got just some really fertile areas. And listen, it's the Tennessee River. It's June. The water temperatures are creeping up in those high 70s. Well, we had a late spring, Marty. We're going to talk about the weather and how everything's played out here. But listen, I'm really interested to see how these ledges are going to play. When you get down around Soddy Creek, Sale Creek, we're looking at Chester Frost Park and Harrison Bay. These are the traditional areas where a lot of the history is played out on Chickamauga. Jason Lambert, Randy Haynes, Mark Rose, Casey Martin, where all that stuff has went down in years past with ledge fishing. This is that area of the lake And I'm really curious to see, with a field of 204 of the best guys in the world, there's some very few select prime real estate areas down on this end of the lake. Will it be one that way? I can't wait to see.
And Todd, let's talk about that prime real estate. You know, when you have that nice locations, you're going to have a lot of people wanting to fish there. And so we've got some footage of some guys on the ledges and showing that it's going to be a little bit of a crowded situation.
Yeah, right off the bat this morning, we got to see some bonus footage before we went live. But Terry Scroggins and Miles Berghoff set up side by side, Marty, already fishing in a crowd, boats still running down the lake. But Marty, talk to us. I know you've talked to a lot of these guys fishing in a crowd. It's going to be a factor this week.
It is. I mean, this lake is known for offshore. It's known for ledges. There is only a limited quantity of what we would consider the good ledges where these mega schools are going to set up at. So now you're going to see anglers sitting side by side, and it's going to affect their angles. There's always an angle or a certain cast that would trigger these fish. So now it becomes more of a mental battle. You know they're there, and one of the hardest things for an angler to do is fish offshore, fish side by side, be able to get the cast he wants, and then stay mentally in tune with what's going on when you've got a crowd of fishermen around you. It can not only become a technique-specific thing, but it becomes a situation where you've got to fight that mental battle.
Yep, and for those anglers that don't want to spend the time in the crowds, there is quite a lot of shoreline to fish, and you know, no surprise there. John Cox coming up shallow.
Hey, the ledges aren't the only thing on Chickamauga, and we're going to see that unfold today on this first day of competition of this super tournament. But you know, John Cox has a lot of history here. He said, "Man, I love this lake. When I get here, it just feels like home." But there's a lot of shallow water cover, and we're going to watch that play out too.
100%. You know, it might not be the mass of fish up shallow that you would see in the springtime, but when you have limited anglers and a large quantity of water that a shallow water guy can fish, now it's just keeping fresh water in front of yourself. And I've always jokingly said, you catch a 7-pounder in 2 foot of water, he weighs the same thing as a 7-pounder in 18 foot of water. So it's gonna, do you want to fish in a crowd, or do you want to have certain sections of your lake, AKA shallow water, to yourself?
Lots of storylines.
There is, and these anglers are out on the water finding their spots right now. We're going to go out to them in just a second. We've got 6 live cameras out on the water today, starting on John Cox, Ron Nelson, Miles Berghoff, Wesley Strader, Michael Neal, and Andy Morgan. How's that for a lineup to start your morning? It's going to be exciting. There's your unofficial leaderboard, guys. We're going to be live on YouTube and Facebook until 9 a.m., so you guys are encouraged to comment, ask questions. We always like to read those and pass along anything we can. And once 9 a.m. hits, we will be live only on FLWfishing.com, where, like always, you get your most extensive live coverage. Not only the live stream, but you get your unofficial leaderboard that we're looking at right there. So quite the event. Looking forward to this. Let's jump out on the water, guys.
Smells like shad.
We're on Ron Nelson, 2019 Rookie of the Year.
Morning, guys. Grinding out the spot here, finally paid off. Got my first little bite. Actually, second bite, but first hookup. Whew. Takes the pressure off a little bit. Nothing big, but a 3-pounder. The old drop shot. Had a good bump on a swim bait a couple casts prior to that, my first bite. It's a matter of time. I keep wanting to leave. I think these fish should be onto my wood I got down lake. This heavy front, but hate to leave a spot with 0 fish in the live well. Live fish are out roaming the flat off the ledge. I just went across the key part of the ledge. There were some fish actually on the bottom where they should be. That's exciting. It's worth staying in the rain for that. But in practice, if I caught a fish, every time you jump, they just fling that worm off. Yeah, right. Hey,
Let's take a look at that fish on our Phoenix replay.
Get in the net. Wait for the jump. One down. About a 3-pounder. Thank you, Lord.
Pulling up on some finesse tactics there. Talking to Ron Nelson last night, he said it's all big baits. It's all the same stuff everyone's throwing. You're throwing the big worm, the big crankbaits. But I said you got to have that drop shot on there just in case they're not cooperating like they're supposed to be.
I kind of got a goal. I'd like to top that 20 pounds today. Caught an old 9-pounder here. First pitch in practice, I'm like, uh-oh. It's so hard fishing these ledges if they don't want to just know the timing's not right. It's so hard to lead. I'm just glad it wasn't a 15. But I'll rotate. My main baits for me in practice have been a drop shot, a big worm, football jig, a big swim bait. It's just there's a wind this morning blowing against the current. What little current we do have does not help. And I'm not a patient man, so this is killing me inside to stay here. I was telling my camera guy earlier, I could actually feel my line coming through a few fish earlier, a couple casts prior to that. So I must have pissed one of them off. Thank you, Lord. One down. Ooh, come on. No. Oh, she's let go of it. That was a good one. Dang it. Close to the boat, too. Yeah, she spit it out.
He said several things that jumps off paper to me already. Anytime you're in TVA reservoirs, one of the biggest things is the current and how much they're pulling at the dams. We call it cubic feet per second. And right now they've been pulling them in the mornings about 20,000 cubic feet per second, and that's just a small amount of current. And we mean cubic feet per second from dam to dam. And in the afternoons it cranks up to 30. These fish position in relationship to that current, but when you have a backwind, because these guys have had a ton of thunderstorms and weather coming in, you have a different wind from a different direction and that goes against the current, it can almost neutralize the great effects that a current can have, and it makes these fish tougher to catch. I mean, they feed on a current schedule a lot of times, being the harder it pulls, the better they'll sit up on this cover.
Great point, Marty. Ron also mentioned last night he was boat 150. So he mentioned that today was just as much about surviving. And so that one fish, a quality bass there, he's very happy. He's looking for 5 of the right fish to keep him in the hunt so then he can have a better pick of where he's going to start tomorrow morning. And then even Jason Lambert said last night he would rather have a late start day 1. He'd rather be the last boat out 2:04 the day 1. So day 2 he can be the first one out. He can know where everyone else is fishing, what's getting beat up, and how the fish are actually really acting.
Glad to be here. Got a lot of friends watching. Means a lot. You know, I was super excited to be fishing a super tournament and the whole change at Chickamauga Lake. This is a special lake. I don't think it's that big bee running at me yet. Peanut. I'll tell you what. He's 16. Baby fish side. He's dry flies.
See, we're starting out the day here in the rain on Chickamauga, and if you're just turning in here this morning, tuning in, who's Ron Nelson? He's our Angler of the Year leader coming into this event, and this dude has been on absolute fire the last few years. He won FLW Rookie of the Year last year, 2019. He finished 3rd here last year, Marty. This guy's no stranger to catching him, and we're watching him start out on a place, and you know he's got a keeper and a 3-pounder, Marty. Probably not a lot to be excited about this morning, but I also saw a 9-pounder already come across on the leaderboard. So probably a pretty good start for Ron Nelson, leading Angler of the Year points. Just kind of, you know, you just want to get off on the right foot and break the ice and put some fish in the live well early on the first day of a competition like this.
Travis said a huge point, 200-plus anglers here in your boat 151. You want to stop on the first available place you think you have. If not, you'll spend an hour riding around looking for somewhere to fish offshore. I got to talk to Ron a little bit before this event ever started just to get to know some of these FLW anglers. And the thing that jumped out to me was a 44-year-old Rookie of the Year. That shows guys like me might still have a chance. But he comes from the Michigan area, and every time I end up with these Michigan anglers, we got some kid over there where we fish at with the initials KVD. It's just, they're good. They're solid. Their fisheries are so diverse. And we talked about, hey, you're not known as a ledge fisherman, and a lot of Michigan anglers aren't, but they deal with so much current on the Great Lakes, whether it's wind or river fed, things like that. They understand how these fish position in current as well, if not better than most anglers in the South. This guy had a plan. He wanted to take care of family, he wanted to take care of business, and then he wanted to check the box as a professional angler. And he is more than checking that box right now.
I'm sure we're going to get a lot of time with Ron here today, and maybe as the rain lets up, we'll get to hear more of his plan for Chickamauga. But what I always find interesting, Marty, is, you know, I've kind of cut my teeth fishing the Tennessee River, and listen, we're going to see cranking, and we're going to see the big spoon, we're going to see a hair jig and a big worm and a football jig, swim baits, everything that you think of when you think ledge fishing. But a guy like Ron Nelson, to your point, coming in from Michigan, knows how to catch, maybe use some finesse tactics like a drop shot, which we've already seen him use here. He's going to switch right here. These fish, and in talking to some of these guys the last few days like you, this lake has been hammered since the end of March. These fish are very educated, and it's going to be interesting to see how guys unlock the code, figure out how to catch these fish at Chickamauga.
And hammered's probably the understatement of the week. I mean, it's known as a ledge lake. It's known as a lake that produces a lot of big fish. We'll talk about the F1 program here coming up. And the world, when we shut down, the whole world went fishing. And this become a destination point. And it's taken a beating. And talking to Michael Neal and others, they're talking about these fish are more educated offshore right now than they've ever been. They've seen every trick and tactic there is. So we're going to see stuff. We're going to see some finesse stuff. And it's going to be a matter of survival. But someone's going to roll up on an area, and it's going to be a 15-minute window, and they're going to blink, and they're going to be set up just right, and you're going to have 25-plus pounds in the best 5 come across, because that's what this lake's capable of.
There he is, hooked up again.
Easy, boy. Another 16 or something. Little fish, all right. Yeah, underneath that draft, I did just stop it. It's like you're hung on the bottom. It's kind of weird. I got some spots they really want that jig, and other spots they seem to want that draft shot. Catch mama now. Come on.
Split screen here, adding Miles Berg off to the mix. Miles lives just up the road in Soddy Daisy, Tennessee. Miles is originally from California, spent time in Florida, and is now living up in Tennessee because he believes these TVA lakes are his biggest weak spot. This ledge fishing has just kind of been a challenge for him, and instead of running away from it, he ran right at it and has really been working hard learning these.
Right here. Oh, he's hooked up. He's hooked up. Big Show's putting on a big show. So the one thing that we're kind of battling right now, we're actually pretty fortunate. We don't have a whole lot of people here. Not long enough? Yeah. Oh, good. So nice. So I've got 3. Terry's got 4 or 5. He's got a limit now. But they all seem to be, decent fish. We haven't caught a non-keeper yet. And the thing that we're kind of battling right now, which is something that is kind of the worst for ledge fishing, is we don't have any current. You can tell because the back of our boats are pointing up current. Because of the wind, if they were pulling current, we'd kind of be sideways. But we're just anchor mode down. Got the Motor Guide Tour Pro working overtime, and I'm just back here relaxing. This has been awesome so far. But we've just been kind of roaming around on this ledge, trying to find where the fish are located. And that happens when you don't have current. These fish are going to roam a lot more. And as soon as the current stops or starts, they may get a little bit tighter to a certain spot. But we're just kind of rotating through a variety of baits. I just caught one on a reaction bait, just kind of ripping it off the bottom. Still kind of fishing that way. But I've also caught one on a Z-Man football jig. And what else? And a chatterbait. Caught one on a chatterbait. We're gonna switch back to the jig. As soon as this current starts rolling in the afternoon, we might be able to catch them one after the other. Right now we gotta kind of work slow. Isn't that right?
Right. Nothing like soaking no shaky head.
Yeah. So we're in essentially 21 foot of water, about that. And we're catching them out of about the same depth. The fish that we're targeting are kind of parallel with the river channel. You just gotta find them. We found them, yeah.
You know, we talked about fishing ledges early and fishing in a crowd. Sometimes it's not a negative thing. If the two anglers can work together, and as with Miles being right next to Big Show, and he's watched Terry catch some fish, it reaffirms, hey, there's fish there. Now, to the point that he was making about the current, I'm looking here at the release schedule right now. At 7 a.m., they were releasing 13,000 cubic feet per second. Now at 8 a.m., they're up to 19,000, so it's gradually ramping up. But because of this back wind that's coming from southwest, and that current comes down the river from north, they feel like there's none being generated. And that wind, it actually stopped the current in there. And these fish, again, it's like facing into the wind. And the harder the wind blows underwater, the harder or the better these fish will bite. So this sort of puts them in a neutral mode, and that's why we're seeing so many finesse tactics early this morning.
Down the sensitivity a little bit. You can see with your electronics, the 360 imaging, you more or less see the shadows. It's hard to see the fish, but you can see the shadows pretty easily. Same goes for all the, if you've got a rock or a stump or something, you can see the shadow behind it a little bit easier than you can see the actual object. Electronics certainly are critical. I mean, when I have it on anchor mode, when I have the motor guide on anchor mode, the 360 really does tell me a lot, because I can still see out in front of me as well as behind me, but I've got it kind of pointed forward. In fact, I'm probably going to change that. Just waiting on that tap. Oh, there was one. You know, if they short strike it, maybe a sign that you need to switch to a different color. I was throwing that pearl jackhammer. Try this, something a little bit more transparent. Man, it's this trolling motor. I've only had it, the new Tour Pro, for like a week now. Just this tournament, really, and it is incredible. I mean, Terry and I have just been side by side, no movement at all. It just stays put. And it's ultra quiet, which I'm really impressed with.
Todd, where were these trolling motors when we were competing?
Right.
I might actually consider it staying out there a few years longer. Being able to have one you can mash a button and it anchors you in place.
Did you just catch one?
It's really amazing how much technology has kind of changed the game. I mean, who's the guy on the front of Scroggins' boat? Well, that's his Marshall. You know, Scroggins is fishing out on the back of the boat. He's got his trolling motor set on anchor mode. So these guys can literally just point into the wind. And you know, on Chickamauga, Marty, you've touched on this a little bit already, but the current is a big deal in how these fish position, which direction they're facing. There's always a key cast a lot of times. One of the things that I found interesting about Chickamauga the first couple of times I went there is it's a lot narrower than Kentucky Lake, Gunnersville, some of the other TVA lakes, Pickwick maybe, that we're used to seeing ledge fishing on. And so because it's narrower, those fish really relate to the current, and the current becomes more defined. It becomes more concentrated. And the positioning of the fish on Chickamauga is probably more important. They're less willing to come up off the bottom. They're less willing to roam around. And when they do, they don't seem to want to bite real good. But the technology lets these guys just relax and fish. You can stay in tune to your bait. And I'm with you. Like, I remember standing out on Kentucky Lake in 2-3 foot waves like this, having to cast the other direction. Right. This looks a lot easier, and I'm appreciating this new technology.
I think in the last 3 years, there's been more advances, definitely in trolling motors, 100% in trolling motors. And I had a long conversation, and he's not here with us this week, but with Ott Defoe, who I think is one of our better electronics guys, and also with Michael Neal as well. And they both felt like in the last 3 years that the electronics have even gotten better in a shorter period of time. So we went what, 25, 30 years, and there was no change in trolling motors. And now everyone's got a new and a better one, and they are good, and it's allowing these guys to be more efficient than ever. To me, another thing that stood out about this particular practice too, I actually think this lake got a reprieve. And here's what I mean by that. These guys are so good on electronics now, they idle and look, and they trust what they see. And there's very little fishing going on. This is the first day that these guys have truly turned the big motor off and said, okay, let's see what we found. It's like the first day of Christmas now. They're getting to unwrap all their presents that they've been seeing under that tree for a while. And now the world's going to get to see what Chickamauga was about. But I keep looking at this weather, and I'm an old school shallow water fisherman at heart. It has a shallow water feel to it today. You think ledges, you want bright sun, warm weather, that perfect current coming down from here. They've got a lot of negative conditions for them. And oh yeah, by the way, we've got 200 plus anglers on the water. Now we've got cloud, overcast, rain, everything in the world that can be built for a shallow water angler. Travis, you made mention of it earlier too about the later flights. We'll keep an eye on this current flow, and I bet you as it ramps up, though, these guys in the later flights, like a Ron Nelson, how long do you stay on a place, and how long are you waiting for that current to turn on? Because we all know the afternoon will get better if they do open up the gates.
Specifically for this style of fishing, you guys are at home are seeing, a pretty good mix of guys that are really, really at the top of their game when it comes to ledge fishing, and then a guy like me who's really just trying to learn it. I've got a big hill to climb, and I've really put myself in a precarious situation where I'm fishing in somebody else's wheelhouse. But you know what? I feel like that was my best opportunity, especially with being boat 3 this morning. So I'm happy with my decision. I'm pretty good offshore. It's just when it comes to a competitive situation, that's where I lack the experience. What's that? Oh yeah, drop shot. Yeah. What am I drop shotting? I thought you had a Carolina rig. No. I normally fish it on a spinning rod like everybody else, but figured with the wind I'd want like a heavier weight. There he is. Oh! I know, I got a little excited. Still got a bait. Still got a bait.
Guys, we talked about all the technology these guys are using. It sometimes feels like you've got to have all these gadgets to catch fish these days, but then every once in a while you'll look back over at John Cox and realize that you don't need all those fancy doodahs. And Marty, you talked about looking like a shallow water bite this morning. I think John Cox agrees with you. This was just from a little while ago on our Phoenix replay.
A man after my own heart right here.
That one scared me. Stay on, baby. Stay on. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I did that for you guys. I knew everybody wanted to see the frog action, so I pulled it out. Oh my gosh. First keeper. Whew. I think we're going to be doing a little more of that today. Oh, I was starting to get a little worried there. We hit a few spots, didn't do no good. Oh boy, that scared me. Whew. Oh, jeez. I don't care if I never catch another fish here. I love this place.
Man, on the unofficial leaderboard, we have that at 6 pounds.
I guess your first bite looks like that, Marty. That kind of locks you in to do a little more fishing a frog this morning.
And he won't have to worry about being side by side with boat company up there. I mean, there you go, hooked up again.
Great big one, but look at that. They're eating that sucker today. Oh man. I think I only got one more, so hopefully, one more frog, so hopefully, figures they didn't bring my frog box, but maybe we can make it last all day. It doesn't get any better than that. That's the best. You know, I'm all excited we're back and everything, but you know, kind of missed a lot of the spawning tournaments, and I was like, man, I'm just not that excited about fishing in the summer. But gosh, man, if they'll eat this frog all day, I'll take it, man. Oh, gosh, I could do it all day long. Way too much fun.
Seeing him fish shallow is not a surprise. Seeing him down lake fishing shallow, that's a little bit of surprise. We haven't talked about this, but this lake is known for the F1 programs we got, and I think we're going to have a run a piece on this a little bit later. But Florida bass, traditionally, they don't like to be out in areas that's got heavy current. They don't like to be in deep water. And this lake has got a lot of Florida strain largemouth in it, and this time of the year, and Wesley Strader gave me a great term, they love to meander in that 1 to 8 foot of water. They might not concentrate in masses, but on a day like today, you don't need them to. Being offshore is not there, especially when they get bigger, is where they all want to be at. So a guy like John Cox or others that are commit to shallow, they might be fishing for less fish, but they've got more lake to themselves.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of major league fishing guys in this event, and I can't wait to kind of talk to you about that as this week plays along and how their strategy changes in this event. But this is only a 5-fish limit, so you know, you only need 5 bites a day, and if they look like that, it's a 30-pound bag. Whereas, you know, we're looking at some of the guys out on the ledges may go through 30, 40, 50 fish a day and may only weigh in 12 pounds. So the cool thing about Chickamauga, and what I remember when I first went there, is it's a Tennessee River impoundment. And there's still obviously some resident fish that grew up on the Tennessee River, and they know current, and that's where they live. But there's this hybrid that was stocked in here, again, you're going to talk about, and they like grass. So when you mix ledge fishing and Florida strains with grass, that's what makes Chickamauga a really dynamic fishery, and all these big fish can be game changers in somebody's day.
100%, 100%. I mean, we're seeing unofficially, Lindell Martin Jr. with one, I think you alluded to it, for 9 pounds.
And 9 pounder.
Okay, that gets my attention. That's a pretty good Berkeley big bass start.
Our unofficial leaderboard, Travis, I think like half of our guys have marshals in this event, so we're going to get a look at maybe half of the guys' weights and maybe not the other half. So your favorite angler may not be showing up on this leaderboard today. Just keep in mind it's unofficial, and but you know what I think you can do, Marty, is like you're getting a feel for, where that weight needs to be at the end of this day. Some guys setting the mark in our first look here at one of the local legends, Wesley Strader.
And Todd, I think you get to see the trends where our shallow water guys keep up with the offshore guys.
Gone exactly the way as I thought it would. I don't know if the lightning last night had something to do with it or all the boat traffic first thing, but I'm getting quite a few bites at this thing. Weird. Pick up in a minute. What was? Just out here cranking this grass. And the only thing, these are bluegill eaters, and the shad too if it come by them, but they're mostly bluegill eaters, so we just gotta get in front of one with a bluegill. It's weird. There's like a little bit of a mud. I don't know if it's where the boat traffic's come through here and it's dingy the water up right there a little bit, or shit out of the grass. I don't. Muddy right here. This got to get fresh water comes through here. Should be good. You'd think this morning would be a good morning to throw a buzz bait. It's pretty dark though. It hadn't been this dark during practice. It's a little bit of sunlight. Oh, I hear that giant mosquito. Four-bladed mosquito over our head right now. Maybe that's the good luck drone. If you wasn't paying attention, that thing would scare you a little bit. I do believe. I thought I was going to start off pretty good. Caught that one right off the bat. Kind of make a good cast, and I hang the front hook on. Retie that. Won't mess up. I don't know why I put that line in my mouth to moisten it, and it's raining outside. It just came out of the water, so force of habit, I guess, when it's hot. I may switch colors here in a minute too. It's a little darker.
Guys, frog fishing is always exciting, and John Cox has found something very special here so far this morning. Here's a look. This happened while we were with Wesley Strader. This was just from a few minutes ago.
Oh, classic. If JT Kinney's watching from home, he just fell off his couch.
And I believe this is fish number 3 for John Cox.
Wow.
We're just hoping he doesn't run out of frogs today. This is sort of fun and exciting here. I want to know how a guy like him shows up on this lake with only 2 in the boat.
Down their throat. That last, I went down the bank to kind of just let the little area rest because my line just went through and ripped all the grass up on the first big one. And I was letting it, other one about 3.5 right there. And then, boy, I just went back to that same little area where that 6-pounder came and just back in the same spot and caught like a 5-pounder. And it just blows my mind, like where I'm throwing, like I couldn't even get the boat up there. It's that shallow. Like it's less than a foot of water. It's just crazy that they're, you know, the conditions are just so perfect, and the water even fell some. But I guess what it's doing, I think what it's in this grass when it was higher, and I guess with the water falling, it made it mat up more, which just made it perfect to work a frog across.
I thought today was going to be all about figuring out this ledge